you are emphasizing pad level. You understand what I'm saying? So reacting off movement, that is huge. That is something that has cut down a lot of offside penalties for me as a defensive line unit. The ones that I've coached. You know, the drills that the drills that you'll see here coming up, about 80% of them are done off of offensive lineman movement or the ball snap, right? So cadence for me is something that I try to, at very minimum, utilize because we all know, right? Quarterbacks use cadence as a weapon to get us to jump off the line of scrimmage, right? You get your brain scrambled jumping off the line of scrimmage. So, we attack that in practice by working off the offensive lineman's movement and working off the ball, right? So alignment, we were talking about this earlier. We were four down attack style defense, right? So I want guys to be able to see that alignment, a pass rush alignment in drills too as well, right? So I'm a big guy on, if you're an edge rusher in a four down defense or whatever that might be, you're 2 to 3 yards outside of the outside shoulder pad of the tackle, right? If you know that it's a pass rush situation, you're 2 to 3 yards. If you're in a three tech, you're in a loose three tech, right? And for me, it doesn't matter if you're a power to speed or speed to power guy. We want to be able to put stress on the offensive lineman pre-snap. It doesn't matter. I know in my mind, hey, I'm best at starting everything off of power. But I also don't want to get in a in a phone booth with the offensive lineman within my first two steps when I'm getting off the ball, right? So we want to be able to give ourselves space and be able to operate, in that, right? So progression, this is something that I live by and I talk about in every defensive line room that I coach, man. Get off, point of attack, finish. That'll be something that I'll drill that'll be something that I'll have within every drill. Now, we'll start off in different ways. You can chop it up every way that you want to, but we'll start it off, for an example, you'll see. We'll start off with the point of attack, right? And we'll get stationary and we'll work the punch of the offensive lineman and the timing in which we throw our hands. I've also done some boxing too, man. So I know that also being violent with your hands is very important, but the timing and the precision in which you throw your hands is probably just important, if not even more, because you don't want to hit and miss. You get what I'm saying? So we'll start off of a 2 point, man. We'll go from there working the cross chop, low punchers, right? If he's a high puncher, we'll work the double swipe, and then we'll take it from a 3 point and do all the correlation of it. And you'll see that here in a minute. That's whatever flavor that you like to do. That's just, how I do things. But also, man, too, I'm a big believer in taping your Indy. Now, obviously, high school and smaller ball, you might not be able to do this. I was a smaller ball coach, and I've been blessed enough to where we did have our Indy taped. But man, it not only helps you be able to critique yourself as a football coach, but it also be able to help you know your guys' personnel on an individual basis. So, one of the things that I go back and do after every season, from an end of season analysis standpoint, is get every 3 to 5 step drop. How long does it take for us from when the ball is snapped to when the ball is thrown to get to the quarterback, right? So and how you want what your seconds might be is yours. But if it's taking a long time, that's a direct reflection of what you're doing in Indy. You understand what I'm saying? So, also knowing your guys on an individual basis. You put them through drills, and it also helps you know what you can do with them situationally. What they're good at, what they're not good at, things of that nature, right? If you got a guy that can't bend, well, we need to be able to see that during drills. He's not quick. He doesn't have a quick twitch. Well, we'll find that out during the drills, right? And heck, another bonus to it, man, you can also, guys talk about playing time, right? Want to complain about that. Well, hey, man, we able to click on these drills, what your drills look like in practice. These what your reps look like, right? So, that's another thing, man, good or bad. So just being able to critique yourself as a ball coach is important. Also one thing too, to that point, I'm a big believer in, how you transition from period to period within your Indy is important. how your attention to detail and how you're transitioning from period to period. That is super duper important because again, you can lose attention span in between that time period, and it goes to crap. If you fumbling around between drill to drill. So I'm looking at that also. When I'm critiquing a tape review, right? So we'll get into next some of the drills that we got going on that I've did over, the last couple of seasons. Right now, we are into our jab step phase. So we're doing this during EDDs. EDDs is just pre-practice, right? So, you can flip this drill either way you want to. You can start from the inside, you can start from the outside, but right here, he's jabbing with that inside foot to every cone. Makes sense? So when he gets to that third cone, right, he's then going to work off this outside counter step and get himself and flip himself as vertically as he can possible with a good finish towards the back, towards that first cone, if you understand what I'm saying, correct? So I'll let it play through a little bit. Not many reps of this because it's cut off, but I'll rewind it a little bit. See that jab right there. Again, jab. And when he gets off that third one, he's now getting himself as vertical as he can possible and being able to finish on that drill. Hold on, I don't know what just happened, fellas. I'm sorry. Oh, my fault. My fault, y'all. I don't know what happened. Because, so like I said, he's starting right here, right? He's jabbing, he's coming. As soon as he gets off of it, he's finishing vertically as he can possible, is reaching towards it and making sure we get in a good body position to the court. Every drill that I work is going to be, whether there's a quarterback there or whether it's not, we are always going to be as square as we can possible to be able to get the quarterback on the be able to get the quarterback on the ground, right? So hold on just a second. Now we'll take that and we'll do, that jab routine that I just showed you, and now we'll take it on grass, right? So what I want you to pay attention to is the set point, and it's simple playing race, one bag. But what I want you to pay attention to is the set point in which I have the bag. You don't want guys jabbing as soon as they get out of their stance, correct? Right? So I set the bag a little bit further to be able to resemble guys being able to take 1 or 2 steps and correctly jab when they get in the kitchen of the offensive lineman. I say this, man, in my opinion, a jab is just like, a crossover on a basketball court. You look at any elite guy, Kyrie, Steph, or whatever you might be, right? When they're crossing over and they're about to do their move, they're attacking and they're trying to take all the airspace out between them and the defender. It's the same thing on the football field, man. So my first 2 steps, I'm looking to close out that airspace between us and the offensive lineman. And when I do that, then that's when I'm getting into my jab, right? So right here, the first rep, he's going in and out, right? So he's attacking the inside with the jab, and then he's coming back out. Not a bad rep. Now, he's finished. Look at the finish, right? His shoulder square, same thing. Next rep, same thing, right? Guy kind of messed up with his helmet, but that's cool. Same rep, same finish. Right now, we're getting to where we're countering from the outside. I'm jabbing outside, now I'm going back in, correct? Right? So the difference is the finish, right? If I'm countering inside, I'm not running the hoop on the outside like I would if I'm winning the outside rush. You get what I'm saying? So if I'm countering inside, I'm already to the lap of the quarterback. If I'm countering to the outside, now we're reaching around and we're running that hoop, and eventually I got to turn that corner to get where the quarterback is. That makes sense. So if I counter inside, I know I'm at the lap of the quarterback. Right here, you'll see some good reps and you'll see some bad reps right here, and I'll walk through it. Right rep right here, counter vertical finish. sell that head fake, get in the offensive line to be able to react, get off, react, square finish, lap of the quarterback. And you'll see the opposite here what it's talking about, what it's talking about. So right here, this guy, see how he tries to bend the corner, right? You can't bend the corner when you counter on an inside rush. That makes sense? So you see me here correcting it, because two guys do it here back to back, if I remember correctly. Yeah, that's great. I'm gonna flip through this. Keep my fault. Same thing. Now you see me correct and tell me, hey, we got to get vertical. We got to get vertical. As soon as we counter inside, we have to lap of the quarterback, and it's time to score the ball. You get what I'm saying? Great job to finish the back. Get vertical. Now we get into our passive phase. So what I mean by passive phase is, we're working every pass set. We're working an overset. If a guy's vertically setting that back foot, if he's trying to run backwards and cut off that speed rush, right? If he's jumping on you off the line of scrimmage, we're working every pass set, based upon, I don't necessarily dictate a move. I want guys to be able to react off the offensive lineman, right? Getting off the ball, identifying the pass set within the first three steps, and then making your move, right? So you'll see some of it right here. Everything off the reaction. There's no ball, no anything. So as soon as the offensive lineman move, we move. Great outside reps, great reps. Simple and plain. I coach D tackles and D ends, right? So efficiency is important in these drills, and being able also, like I said, the pace of these drills. You see these reps, these guys are down and ready to go. Same thing right here, simple. It's one crayon doing it with a partner. The offensive line moves, I move, okay. Right now we're working the outside rush. Then we'll flip the crayon and we'll do inside counters. Right? So now I want you to pay attention to this alignment. Great stance, great alignment, 2 to 3 yards outside the outside shoulder pad of the tackle, or a loose alignment right here for the defensive tackle, being able to operate in space. Now we get the offensive lineman to commit, and we're defeating the inside end. Really selling that speed rush vertically upfield, because when you do that, now the offensive lineman is either opening up his shoulder pad or he's exposing our chest. So we can either counter inside, beat him off the outside rush, or be able to get in his, what, and be able to get speed to power, right? So, this guy's working right here. Again, counter inside, counter inside. Then right here, we'll take it and we'll pick a partner. Pick a partner. Not many pop-ups, not many gadgets or anything of that nature. It's simple and plain. You see how many guys I have coaching right here. So you don't have time to be able to set up everything, correct? You get what I'm saying? So it's simple and plain, but it's effective. Alignment, okay, we get the overset now, working inside. Great alignment, speed rush, vertically 2 to 3 steps. Okay, now we see that he's overcommitting. Okay, now we're working inside. Same thing. Now we'll flip it. Another thing too, right? We're gonna do everything out of the right and left stance. So if you do it with your right hand, you're gonna do it with your left hand, right? You do it with your left foot back, you do it with your right foot back. You do it with your left hand, you cross out with your left hand, you're gonna be able to cross out with your right hand too. Right, so some things just running through it, guys. Same thing, we're going to the next phase of it. And now here's a hoop. Here's a hoop routine that I did right here. A couple of years back. I believe this is in 2023, man. So, the emphasis on this is just trying to get the guys to stay as tight as possible, working your shoulders, right? Making sure that your hips is in good position, and on the finish, on the finish, we're staying as square as possible to be able to be in good body position to sack the quarterback. You know what I'm saying? So again, if you say it again, everything off the ball, everything off the stick, this is a great rep right here. Again, working on shoulders, working that squat, working around, finish. Great rep. If this is on the pace, so if you see it, that guy's getting ready, he's down, that guy already up, he's ready to go. Now, you see even how he's trying to right now, how I'm telling him, hey, back up, give yourself some space. You know what I mean? Be able to get your move off, but we want to make sure that we keeping that pass rush alignment 2 to 3 yards outside for our edges. And it's goddamn ready to go. See the pace of the drills, these guys are really like down, ready to go. As soon as the ball is snapped, next person is going. Excuse me, someone on the finish. Right here's an excellent rep. Right here is a very excellent rep. See how tight this guy stays. See where his hips are around. You see where his shoulders are working. It's a great, clean rep. And that's why you see it in slow motion a little bit because the finish is excellent too as well on the reach. He's square as possible. Right here, we get into a flash club rep progression. So, like I said, we'll start stuff at the point of attack first. We're in the 2 point here. This is D tackles and D ends, but I want guys to be able to get that timing right as well of the move when I'm getting to that point of attack. So timing is everything with your hands and when you working the move too as well. But if you look 9-4, this is a great rep. Even though he's a D tackle and we're working from a 2 point, his pad level is still down and he's still ready to get nose over toes, and all of his weight is ready to propel and get off the line of scrimmage. Last club grip, getting that hand in the middle of the numbers and clubbing across. Hand in the middle of the numbers, club across. Hand in the middle of the numbers, club across. Flashing, resetting with the inside head, club across. If a guy isn't doing it the way I like, I will send him back. Everybody does that, you know what I mean? But at some point, we got to move on if you're not doing it correctly, right? So, and then we'll get into 3 point right here. So now we're working from a 3 point. So now we go from the point of attack, right? And now we're working it from all three phases from the get off point of attack and finish. But if you notice, whether we work at 2 point or whether we're working it from 3 point, it will still resemble that finish on the reach. And right here, these some great reps. I like the pace of the drill right here. If you see it, these guys are just getting off the ball, getting off the ball. Everything you're doing is the same game-like reps the way that you get off right here is the same way we get off in the game. Now, right here is the thing that I call top of the rush counters, right? So, some guys, they'll make a move and they'll get hooked up with the offensive lineman again, right? How can I counter off that as well to be able to get to the quarterback? So we'll start this hooked up. And I don't know if, hold on, I'm going to rewind it back from the bit. But if you start right here, excuse me, right about here, you can see they're starting hooked up, right? They're starting in that high rep, and now we'll counter off of it. So starting off the high rep, low pad level, this is resembling the top of the rush. So we've already made our move. We're in a good body position to be able to sack the quarterback, right? Now that last little finish, how can I make the deal? How can I make the sack, right? High rep, counter off of that. I don't know what's going on with this, y'all, but something is messing up on the slide, so y'all gotta excuse me. Hold on. My fault, y'all. But yeah, like I said, top of the rush counter is right here. You'll see it, and we'll flip it left to right, right to left. And if you see it right here, they're high ripping counter off of it. So high rip, one front rip out, and one counter off of that. Right here, we're starting. We got two places right here. We are starting with a cross chop. Double swipe over here where I'm at, and we got the cross chop on the other side. So like I said, we'll start with the point of attack first. Swipe, swipe, reach. Swipe, swipe, reach. Same thing on the other side of the GO over here, who I had Fred Overfield the last season, 2024. You know, we got 20 guys, right? How can we make it efficient, on point, fast, right? And still being able to get something out of the drill. So just a swipe, swipe, reach. We'll start from there, 2 point, and then we'll go to 3 point. Now here it is, 3 point. Swipe, swipe, reach. Excellent. And why I like working, like I said, why I like working the point of attack first, because a lot of guys, the get off is probably the most important part of it, right? But a lot of guys miss sometimes on their hands, and also they don't know what move to throw or what the offensive line is giving us from a punch standpoint, correct? So if you got an offensive lineman who's a low puncher, you probably don't need to be throwing double swipes. And if you got a guy that's a high puncher, it's probably not wise to be throwing a cross chop, correct? So I like guys to be able to see that precision and that timing with their hands, and that's why I've always done it, the way I'm doing it right here. So it works for me. You got to do what works for you as well. So right here. And one thing also too that I want to put a point of emphasis on is the get off and the pad level to get off. So one thing, if you can see it right here, I'm in this gray. If you guys can see it, right? One thing I love about this rep is that you don't see this guy's numbers when he's getting out of his stance. So we want to make sure that this back foot is replacing our front hand, and we want to make sure that our chest is not exposed within those first 2 to 3 yards. That is super duper important, right? It's a great rep right here. You can see it. The guy's pad level is low. You can't see his numbers. And if I'm getting off the way that I'm supposed to low, like you running 100-yard dash, we're closing out the distance between us and the offensive line as quick as possible, right? So you're doing efficiently, depending upon the guy, man, you should be there in about 2 to 3 steps at worst if you get off the ball correctly. Great rep. Same thing, great rep. When we get group work, like I said, if you can see it right here, man, we got 20 guys, right? So how can we break it up, make it efficient, and making sure guys get something out of it, man? So right here, they're over here picking up the towel, kind of a ghost rush, But man, I want to see how well you can bend in this drill. You don't gotta, you're not a ghost rush guy. That's fine, but it's still an emphasis on the pad level, being able to pick up that towel and reach on the finish. Over here where I'm at in the grade, we got the cross chop going. So we'll flip flop. So we get 2 to 3, maybe 2 3 minutes of each rep, and then we'll flip flop. So you kind of killing 2 to 3 birds in one stone. You know what I mean? So cross chop, no punch. Another thing too is the guys, the offensive lineman. Another thing that's important is the offensive lineman just as much in this too. Because you don't want to be lazy. So we throw a cross chop. The punch of the offensive lineman got to be precise and on point. Low punch, cross chop. Low punch, cross chop. Reaching on the finish. Simple and plain. You got over here, nose over toe, you pick up that sound, but reach on the finish. picking up that towel, reacting over here, we got to reacting off that towel. So as soon as you sit there down the towel, as soon as he sits down that towel, we react to get off of it. Now they go from right to left. You know what I'm saying? So, that's kind of the basis of my drill stuff, that we've done over the last couple seasons. I apologize about, the weather's been bad, so the internet is a bit choppy, but man, is there any questions or anything of that nature?
I'm all good.
Yes,
You're
sir.
saying like you were with the one drill you were doing, like the flash. I think that's good. Like it kind of progresses your kids. Like, okay, hey, you're gonna show power to the offensive lineman, but then you're working an outside move. Like I think that's good that you add layers to it,
Right,
to your drills where hey, like in game, you at least have like a counter. It's kind of like chess, not checkers. You know what I mean? You want to be able to kind of set up
right,
different moves, and
100%.
that's what I liked in your drills was
Hmm.
you show that with the flash, and that way, some alignments, okay, hey, he might go flash and work outside. Then one next rep, you might do a bull rush. You know what I mean? I think that's good that you show that different variations in drills. And I like that you like this drill right here, like you have two segments going on. You're not wasting reps, 20 guys in one line. You're trying to get multiple
Exactly,
reps as much as
exactly.
possible, and you're adding layers to it. I mean, that's something I've learned in my career is how can you got to be able to crawl, to walk, to run. You know what I mean? So you're adding layers to it, and I like that. That's
Right, right,
what I mean, that's good to see. And I love that you mentioned like trying to get your kids to realize different handsets. Like you have different alignments you play against. You have high hands, low hands, you have grabbers, you have so many different types of alignment, and just teaching your kids to kind of react to them and be able to. Yeah, it can't be a guessing game. They have
right.
to be able to react off of it, and I think you're doing a good job. And I've actually talked to you before, and you're awesome, dude. And you were willing to help me when I think it was either East Central or when you were at Delta State, and just being helpful and being,
Right.
that type of person. That's kind of the kind of people I want to have as speakers, and happy to have you on, man. And so I accidentally missed the beginning of the recording. If you want to show up your contacts again, if anybody wants to reach out to you later down the road,
Okay,
and
cool.
does anybody else have any questions or anything like that for Coach?
Yeah, I got a question.
Go
Uh,
ahead.
hey, Coach, how do you get your guys? I'm a high school ball coach. I've been coaching D line for well over 10 years now. And we're a lot undersized at my school,
Mhm.
but we got a lot of speed. Um, I noticed in your drill already that I'm gonna take off top is kind of giving us a little bit more space off the line of scrimmage. I think we crowd the ball a little bit too much at times, and we get up into them big offensive linemen. We get covered
Right,
easily. So I already see that's probably one of my adjustments going into the summer. Transition from spring is backing us up off the ball a little bit,
hmm,
but also just trying to get them more violent with their hands. Just making sure that we shot. We do a lot of
right.
work with the sleds, and coming out the shoots and things like that. Um, what are some recommendations you think you have for like just getting more violent with their hands?
Well, I'm gonna address your question first. Was you talking about crowding off the ball? So I don't necessarily, yes, obviously, crowding the ball, right? I want you to think more so crowding the offensive lineman. Does that make sense? Like, so we don't want to be in a phone booth with an offensive lineman. That's what I mean by playing in space. You get what I mean? So
Yes, sir.
not necessarily you scooting up or to or from the ball. Where are we aligning with the offensive lineman? You get what I'm saying? Now, to the violence standpoint, man, there's two components of it, right? One, if you gotta tell a guy to be violent, that's probably not who you need to be having on the field, anyways, right? But also, too, stressing that during the drills is important. You gotta let the guys know with honesty, hey, man, this is not the rep that we looking for. It's soft. You know what I mean? I don't think necessarily you can really drill violence more so than it being a standard or something that you upkeep in your room, if that makes sense, brother. You get what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so that's huge, man. That has to be more so of a standard in your room than something you drill. I do the things with the hands, like I said, just for the precision of it. Guys, they miss with their hands. They don't know where to throw their hands. They don't know what they're looking at with the offensive linemen sometimes. So they're just doing and commit moves that they see on YouTube, and it's not working. It doesn't work. If a guy's punching, it's simple and plain math, man. If I'm getting punched in the middle of my chest, I'm not gonna push towards his hip to try to get him to not punch me in the middle of my chest. No, I'm gonna swipe it off the middle of my chest, right? But you be amazed. You got to work that during drill, man. You definitely got to work that during the drill. They have to know where to place their hands at for sure, bro.
Too, like it's also kind of understanding what your room is. Like if you have a lot of undersized guys, and okay, maybe they're better at power, maybe they're more better working the edge, more
Right,
finesse. I mean, I think it's kind of understanding what type of body types you have, and like Coach mentioned, like progressing your indie towards the type of athletes you have. Like I've been at the lower levels, and Coach has been at the D2 ball, and you kind of have to adjust to what type of athletes you have. And, I know you mentioned working with high school guys and middle school guys. Like you probably have a little bit of different variations for each drills that kind of have the same results. So it's just finding out what each guy does best, whether it's, hey, whether it's filming indie, or maybe you have maybe you don't have that luxury and you have somebody that's hurt, or one of the managers, water drills. Hey, can you film this indie for me on my phone? You know what I mean? There's different
right,
ways to
right.
find it out, and being
'Cause I-
progressive. Hey, maybe you have rules in high school where you can't record in the summertime. As a coach, maybe, hey, one of the kids can record on their phones and send it to you. You know what I mean? Just finding ways. There's a lot of rules in each level, and it's kind of how can you find ways to not break the rules but help yourself as a coach.
Right, most
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely. I mean, we film a lot of our like one-on-ones and our group stuff. But that indie thing, I do need to pick that up a little bit more and just film that, because some of it is just showing it, like why certain things show up in the game that we're not supposed to do. We kind of doing our own thing type of deal, where it's stuff that they just getting away from in indie.
Right. And see, I've one thing that I try to live by, man, with coaching, bro, you can't get mad at kids about something you haven't went over with at practice. If you're not drilling it during your indie and stuff like that, and they're not doing during the game, the only person that you can get mad at is yourself. You know what I mean? So, and also, like Coach said earlier, point to that, you also got to help guys. I know for myself in my rooms that I coach, you got to kind of help guys get an identity of how they're pass rush. Guys tend to get all over the place, and you looking at those indie reps and you looking at those one-on-one reps, and you're telling dude like, hey, you work well off of a long arm. We probably need to start off of a long arm, right? Cross chop is something that you're great at. Hey, let's start off a cross chop. If the offensive lineman gives us a different punch, let's have something for that too as well, right? So kind of also trying to help guys trying to find their identity, man. Heck, we don't even know what we want to eat, tonight. You know, we need help with that, right? So typing that indie dude, it helps them with being able to identify what type of pass rusher they are too as well.
Yeah, I got you. That makes sense.
Yes, sir.
I have a question about stance.
Mhm.
What stance? How would you teach stance and get off to your guys?
Man, that's a great question. That is a great question. So I have a thorough progression when it comes to stances, man. So, that's the biggest part of the rush. You don't want to D-tackle in the same pass rush stance as you do a defensive end. I'm a
Mhm.
guy that likes my defensive ends, right? Obviously elongated stance, right? Everything loaded in the front foot, but I also like to have that offhand backwards because edges are playing a little bit more space, so they can get off the ball like it's a track meet, and so
Yeah,
we're having an offhand and we're not using it. So when I mean by that, like, hold on, I'll go to the second clip.
kind of like a Nick Bosa type of stance.
100%,
Yeah,
100%. So as
yeah.
soon as I getting off the ball, I'm working my shoulders and I'm throwing everything that I can out of my stance to be able to close that distance, right?
Mhm.
For a D tackle with his offhand, really the only difference between the end and the tackle, how I teach it, is the offhand. Because
Okay.
with a D tackle, right, it come a lot quicker in those B and A gaps. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you probably don't want to have your hand all the way cocked back. So we got it ready. We're 1 or 2 steps. We're committing every move we can in the book after that. So I guess to answer your question, one, steps out of your stance, pad level out of your stance, is that back foot. Where do you want that back foot? You want to really elongated backwards, or you are heel, the instep type of guy?
Yeah.
That's more so. I've taught that during odd front because you got guys that's working up from a head up zero. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But if you're attack style, getting after the passer, you want that back foot behind that front heel line, and getting off the ball, eating no grass. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Elongated, all that weight on that front foot, really sliding out of that stance like a sprinter would in the track on,
Got it.
on a 100-yard track field.
So I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Like it's also understanding like what is requiring your defense. Like some of the schools I've been at is, we have our base down stance. Like, hey, we want to have a flat back. We want to be able to explode, take short, choppy steps. Maybe it's first and second down where hey, it's heavy tendency run down, and then we want like a sprinter stance on third down.
Right.
Yeah.
Some place I've been at, we have one DM that liked to be in a 2 point. We told them, hey, if you're gonna do that, you have to do it both ways, whether you're dropping or rushing. And then obviously you have your 4 point stance, maybe for like goal line. Hey, you want to be 2 hands in the ground, really short, really low, like almost submarine through like the offensive lineman's knees. You want to get really low. So I think it's all kind of dependent on what down and distance you are and like how you're trying to teach it. You know what I mean? So I think it's good to have different variations, and it also has to be adjusted to your players. Like you can be nitpicky on it a little bit, but also like what's going to get them to fire off the ball. I would say
Yes.
is the most
Yes.
important.
Yes.
You don't want to over tweak it and the kid's uncomfortable. You know what I mean? I think that's one of those things like I've learned coaching is not every kid's the same. Not every kid's gonna have the same stance. You can kind of tweak it a little bit,
Yeah.
but at the college level, like they got there for a reason. Like you can adjust it a little bit and edit it. But man, I need that dude to fire off the ball as fast as hell. So
Yeah. The thing is, I mean, obviously, you're not gonna have the same stance on 1st and 10 as you are on 3rd and 11.
Yeah.
Pass rush, you want it narrow based, elongated, all the weight on the front foot, right? Really eating up grass and eating up space between you and the O lineman. 1st and 10, I'm a big heel to insto step type of guy, right? Because I want that base. I want to be able to keep my pad level and have that base, when we're firing off and we're hitting keys. That makes sense. So,
Yeah.
like Coach said, it's really situation. You don't want to get too robotic too with a guy. The only thing I will say is that is non-negotiable is that the efficiency of the footsteps out of the stance and the
Yeah.
pad level. In the
Yeah. I
pad level.
always talk that downhand, that first step replaces that downhand.
100%.
And and then from there, you read the offensive lineman's pass set. Is it
Right.
is it a jump? Is it a slide? Is it a quick out or like a block like that? You react to that block.
Yeah. Yeah. And your get off, brother, your get off is kind of going to dictate the pass set of the offensive lineman. Obviously, offensive linemen have tendencies, right? They have things that they're comfortable with from a pass set standpoint. But if we are getting off the rock the way that we're supposed to in the correct alignment, we are forcing you to make a decision as an offensive lineman. And that's what we want. That's why I talked about alignment, in earlier on during the session, is because we want offensive linemen are scared of speed, bro. Especially at the, high school, we're small ball coaches, man. Of the typical offensive lineman doesn't want any parts of a guy that's getting off the ball quick, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we want to be able to dictate, what an offensive lineman does based upon how we getting off the rock.
Questions?
Yeah,
What you say, Coach?
Just got questions or anything like that?
Nah, I'm all good right now.
Well, hey, Coach, I appreciate you coming on, and I know Coach shared his contact. If anybody wants to reach out to him, and I appreciate him coming on. He's a really helpful dude. He was willing to help me out when I was at a different college, and I emailed him, and he got back to me and had probably a 30-minute conversation. Just really good dude that wants to help others learn and grow. And I think that's awesome in a profession where being open to sharing and being willing to help others grow and be successful. I think that's the biggest thing is willing to help not only coaches grow, but to give back to the players and stuff like that is to help make an impact and truly helping others grow. And I appreciate you, Coach.
Yes, sir. Most definitely. I appreciate y'all, man, for having me.
Appreciate it.
Well, Coach, I'll stop recording and I'll kind of edit it and I'll get it sent to you. And if it's all good to post, I'll let you know. All right, brother.
All right, man. Y'all have a good one, man. Appreciate y'all.
All right, take it easy, brother.
All right, take it easy, Coach. Thank you.